So I welcome you all to part 2 of ManageEngine's free training session on Network Configuration Manager. So today we'll be covering the topics of configlets, compliance, role-based access control, and reports. Hi, I'm Akash, a product expert at Network Configuration Manager, and I will be the presenter for today's free training session. So this is the agenda for today's session. We'll be covering configlets and its uses, compliance, role-based access control, schedules, reports, and finally we'll talk about the various integrations. So let's begin with our first topic, which is configlets. So what are configlets? So configlets are executable configuration or script templates that can be used to push commands to multiple devices for bulk execution or troubleshooting purposes. So what are the configlets used for? Configlets are primarily used for troubleshooting faulty devices, pushing new configurations, and modifying configurations on multiple devices simultaneously. So for example, let's say a user wants to enable SNMP version 3 or configure it on a set of devices. Without an automation tool, the user would have to log into each device using tools like PuTTY or Telnet to configure SNMP version 3. This process would be very tedious and almost impossible in a large network infrastructure with many devices. Instead, using configlets, the user can push the enable SNMP v3 command to any number of devices with a single click. This not only saves a lot of time, but also reduces the manual work for network administrators. So now let's look at how to add configlets in Network Configuration Manager. In Network Configuration Manager, there are 3 execution modes for adding configlets. One is the script execution mode, the advanced script execution mode, and the file transfer mode. So in the upcoming slides, we will be looking at each of these execution modes in detail, starting with script execution mode. In script execution mode, the commands are executed sequentially on the selected devices. This mode is suitable for simple commands such as enabling or disabling SNMP on multiple devices. On the screen, you can see an example of the script execution mode command. And on the left, it's shown in black as in PuTTY. And on the right, it is displayed in the configured content area of Network Configuration Manager. So let me demonstrate how this works in the Network Manager Configuration Manager UI. All right, so first head over to the config automation tab and then go to configlets. So as you can see right here, the Network Configuration Manager supports both CLI and REST configlets. For REST configlets, we've got support for vendors like Palo Alto, Fortinet, Aruba, etc. And we are also working on adding more vendors in the future. So now moving on to CLI configlets, let's start by seeing how you can add a new configlet from scratch. Then we'll take a look at the examples of 3 execution modes one by one. To add a new configlet, just click on the plus symbol right here, and you will have to provide a name for the configlet. Select the execution mode. You've got a few options over here, and select the vendor and add a description to explain what is this configlet used for. And then you can enter the configlet content in the provided space, and you can click on save. So if you want Network Configuration Manager to perform backup before and after this template's execution, just check this box. And once everything is set, you can just click on save. And after saving, your configlet will be shown upon this screen. And from here, you can either execute it or immediately, or schedule it for later, or you can also delete it if needed. So let me walk you through an example of the script execution mode. So let's just go to search. So as you can see right here, we have an example for the script execution mode. So this is the enable SNMP v1 v2 Cisco, In this example, we are enabling SNMP version 1 and version 2 for Cisco devices. So as you can see right here, the name is set and the execution mode is selected as script execution mode. And the vendor is chosen as Cisco since we are only targeting Cisco devices. So the config content provided here uh, is also provided here, and things like read community and write community settings are also provided. The backup option is checked, and meaning the network configuration manager will back up before and after executing this template. So after you click on save, like I mentioned earlier from the screen, you can choose to you can also choose to execute, schedule, or delete. So you'll see the configlet name and the execution mode and the vendor listed. So this makes you, so let's look at the first option, which is the execute. So after you click on execute, you will see the configlet name, the vendor listed, and this helps you double check that all the details match up that you set up. And here you can decide whether to use the same template values for all devices or different values for each device. So you can choose the devices, whether it's a device group like all Cisco router group or switches or etc. Or you can choose individual devices. So just select the devices that you want, and the configlet will be executed for those specific devices. So since we have selected Cisco as the vendor, that is also that should also be a Cisco devices tab. Okay, now let's that's a quick example of the script execution mode command. So now let's take a look at the advanced script execution mode. This mode is used for specific scenarios, like when there are prompt changes after a command execution. User confirmation commands that require a yes or no, stopping command execution if there is an error in the middle, and changing the execution flow, and so on. Essentially, for these kinds of more complex environments, you would use the advanced script execution mode. Now let's take a look at an example of the advanced script execution mode. On the left, you can see the telnet output, and on the right is the configlet content as it appears in the network configuration manager's UI. So let me walk you through an example of this on the UI. So let's just go back. So in this example, we are going to update the host name of all Cisco devices present in the network configuration manager. So here you can see the name is already provided. The execution mode is set to advanced script execution mode, and the vendor is selected as Cisco since this configlet is specifically for Cisco devices. You can also select other vendors from here. So the description is filled in, explaining that it updates the host name for Cisco devices, and the configlet content is listed below. You can see the commands are provided in sequence, which is the 1, 2, and 3, and these commands will be executed in that particular order. So if you want to back up before and after the execution, you can check this box, and once everything is set up, you can just click on save, and after saving, you have the in the similar way, you would have the three options, which is execute, schedule, and delete. And last time I showed you how to execute a configlet immediately. This time, let's explore the schedule option. So just click on schedule, and you can provide a name, a schedule name, and choose the schedule type as configlets. It might be already selected, but if it is not, you can select it as configlets, and you can select the vendor, which is in case our Cisco, and select the configlets that you have created, and make sure the execution mode is set correctly, and check the backup option if needed. And here you can also choose to report the file as a PDF, CSV, or TXT file. Finally, we select the schedule option to set up when this particular configure will run. So I'll cover the scheduled functionality more in detail in the upcoming slides. So now let's talk about the configuration workflow. So as seen in the earlier example, commands are executed in a specific sequence. This functionality is supported only in advanced script execution configlets within the network configuration manager. Here you can set the sequence and conditions like success, failure, etc. to control the flow of execution. So let me show you an example of the Configlets workflow in the UI. So this is an example where we are going to upgrade the Cisco iOS firmware. So in the configurate content area, you see a series of sequential lines and there are conditions for set for success and failure. So here's how it works. When the configurate is executed, it follows the sequence, and if the condition is met, it moves on to the next step in the sequence, which is 6, 7, and 8, and eventually it reaches to the exit point. So, however, if there is a failure, it won't be moving to the next step, and the configurate execution will stop right there. So that's the example of how the workflow operates in the network configuration manager, specifically in advanced script execution mode. All right, the final mode in which you can execute configlets is the file transfer mode. So in this mode, you can push an entire configuration, whether it's a running configuration, a startup configuration, or both, to selected devices at once. So let me show you how this works in the UI. Just a second. Okay, so here we have an example of a file transfer for Cisco devices. As you can see, a complete configuration has been pasted in the configured content area. And you can just click on save, and you can also choose to execute, schedule, or delete it from here. So that's how the file transfer mode works in network configuration manager. So the purpose, these configurate modes can be used to automate repetitive network configuration tasks, such as updating device settings, applying security policies, or even deploying firmware updates across multiple devices. By using these configurates feature, network admins can efficiently manage large-scale networks, ensure uniform configurations, and quickly implement changes without manually configuring each device. So now let's move on to the next topic, which is the configurate execution. So remember how we talked about the template variable selection earlier. So here's where you need to decide whether to use the same value for all devices or different value for each device. The reason we have this feature is that some devices might need different details like interface ranges, host names, etc. In those cases, you can use this option to execute different values for different devices. So let's see this in action in the UI. So we'll use the same example that we have used before, which is the SNMP version 1 and 2 for Cisco devices. So as you have seen right here, we have provided the read-only community and the read-write community values. So if all the devices need the same values, enter the same read-only and write community. So let's go to the execute, and here you can see that. But if you have different devices requiring different values, you can choose the different value for each device option. In this case, you will need to upload a specific file in that specified format, which is provided over here. And just click on preview, and then you can click on execute. So the details provided in the file will be applied to each device according to the configlet. So there's also another option which is called use first row value for all. So when you check this box, the value from the first row of your file will be executed for all the devices. So here is an example of that in this slide. On the left, you can see different values for each device, different host names for each. But on the right side, you can see that the first row values box is checked. So when this is checked, the value given in the first row, like the host name, will be applied to all the devices. So this is how the configlet execution works with different values for each device. All right, now let's move on to the next topic, which is the two-factor configlet execution. So this is a new feature we have recently developed in Network Configuration Manager. If you have enabled two-factor authentication, you will receive a TOTP, which is a time-based one-time password in your Authenticator app. Only after entering this TOTP will you be able to execute the configlet. This feature adds an extra layer of security authentication. If a two-factor authentication is enabled, this step will be required for executing any configlet. This feature, configlet execution, is used for automating the application of configuration changes across multiple devices in a controlled and an efficient manner. So that covers everything about configlets in NCM. So if you have any questions about today's session, feel free to raise them in the chat panel. We have a dedicated panelists to answer all your queries. Also, if you have joined late, no worries. This presentation and recording will be sent to your email in a couple of days. And if you would like a free demo of the product, our panelists will enable the poll shortly. Just choose S and we'll help you set up an NCM for your enterprise. All right, now let's move on to the second topic of our session, which is the compliance. So why is compliance important and why do you need to adhere to certain policies? So compliance is crucial to avoid security vulnerabilities or loopholes in your network environment. It's also mandatory and non-compliance can lead to legal consequences. Some of the default policies supported in Network Configuration Manager include SIS benchmarks, SOCs, HIPAA, and PCI DSS. You can also create your own policies based on your requirements. So to create a custom policy, you first need to create a custom rule. Then group these rules into rule groups. And finally, these rule groups are associated as policies. So after creating and applying a policy to devices, NCM will run a compliance check to see if the devices adhere to the policy. If not, a violation is triggered. So there are two ways to create a custom rule. You can either clone an existing rule or add a new one from scratch. There are three criteria for adding a compliance rule from scratch, which is the simple criteria, the advanced criteria, and the advanced custom criteria. In the upcoming slides, we'll dive deeper into these three criteria. So now let's start with the simple criteria. So here during NCM's compliance check, you can select options like what should or shouldn't be contained, whether it should be an exact set or not, and specify the number of times it must appear in our device's configuration. So let me show you this in the UI. So we have a separate tab for compliance. You can just click on it, and here you will see the policies currently available in NCM. Both the default and the ones that are created from scratch will be displayed here. You can also see the number of the compliant devices, the devices under violation, and the devices that are not available. So from here, you can run a compliance check as well, just clicking on compliance check. Now let me show you how to create rules from scratch. So just go to rules and you will see all the existing rules over here. To create a new one, just click on the plus symbol and you can choose any criteria that you want, which is simple, advanced, or advanced custom criteria, and provide the conditions and lines. So then you can associate this rule to a rule group. and proceed with the policy. So this will be clearer with an example. So let me show you one for the simple criteria. So here's an example of a simple criteria rule where the public community shouldn't be present. We have set the condition as should not contain any line and specified any number of times. For instance, we have provided SNMP community public RO and SNMP community public RW in this area. So during this compliance check, NCM will check if these two lines are present in the configuration of the devices associated with these rules. And if these lines are present, the rule is in violation and you need to remediate the rule to achieve compliance. Otherwise, if the rule is satisfied, it means that the rule is compliant and you can leave it as it is. And after you click on next, here you can provide the rule name, a short description for the rule's purpose, and select the violation severity, whether it should be critical, major, or warning. And you can also select, choose a remediation configlet. For example, we have created a no SNMP public remediation configlet. So as you know, configlets are script templates. So whenever this rule becomes a violation, you can use this remediation configlet and execute it in any time. It's always good to create a remediation configlet while creating a rule from scratch. So after creating it, you can just click on save and your rules will be saved and shown in here. So the next step is to associate these rules with the required rule group. So you can just select the group and click on the three lines on the corner and click on associate to rule groups. So you'll see the set of available rules over here, and the rules that you have selected will be shown on the right hand side. And if you want to select other rules, just pick them from here and then you can drag them to the right. And then select the rule groups in which you want to associate these rules to, assign to, and then click on save. So once clicking on save, these rules will be associated with these particular rule groups. So that is an example of the simple criteria compliance rule. Now let's talk about the advanced criteria. So in this criteria, you can provide conditions such as should contain or should not contain, along with the regular expression pattern. Additionally, you have the option to use the AND or functions, allowing you to create multiple criteria within the single rule. So let me show you this in the UI. Just a second. So here is an example of an advanced criteria compliance rule. So as you can see right here, the condition is set as should contain and should not contain for specific patterns. And so there's another line that uses an or function where it should contain a particular pattern. So here's how it works. During a compliance check, NCM will look for the specific pattern in the configuration file. And if the pattern is not found, it moves on to the next condition. And it checks the AND operation to see if both patterns are being satisfied. So both of these AND conditions and should appear only once in the configuration. If any condition appears more than once, the rule will be violated. Once these conditions are satisfied, NCM will mark the test as it's compliant or not. So after you click on next, you can provide a rule name, a short description, and the violation severity. And here you can select the choose the remediation configlet that you have created for this rule. So you can select any of the remediation configlet, and then you can click on save. then you can associate it with the rule groups as we have shown before. So this is an example of the advanced criteria role. So next up is the advanced custom criteria. So this is basically a mixture of both simple criteria and advanced criteria. So here you have the option to use a single block criteria as well as multi-block criteria. You can also use the and or functions, regex patterns, and specify the number of times a patterns must be present. So let me show you this in the UI. So as you can see right here, this is an example of the advanced custom criteria. We have two options, which is single block criteria and the multi-block criteria. So let's take this picture as an example for this compliance role. You can see that in this particular configuration block starts with interface and ends with an exclamation mark. So you can specify the configuration block start as interface and the block end as exclamation mark. And additionally, we have an additional block criteria set to which says should not contain shutdown. So what does shutdown mean here? In a network environment, some devices may be shown in a shutdown mode, and it might not be necessary to run a compliance check on these devices. To avoid this, you can just provide this option in the advanced custom criteria in the additional block criteria. So here's how this works. NCM will check if the configuration block starts with an interface and ends with an exclamation mark. If the condition is satisfied, then it moves on to the next criteria to check if the line contains the word shutdown. So as you can see right here, the shutdown is present, which means that the device is in shutdown mode, and it will skip to the next device. And if the next device has the shutdown is not present, it means the router switch or the device is in running mode, and NCM will proceed to the next condition to check if the description pattern is present in the configuration or not. So if all of these conditions are satisfied, then the rule is marked as compliant. Otherwise, it throws a violation. So you can just click on next. So after clicking on next, you can provide the name, this severity, and you can select the remediation configlet. You can give a description, and you can just click on save. So now if you want to, so this is about it for the compliance. Now if you want to create a rule group from scratch, you can do so by selecting the rule groups and clicking on the plus symbol and provide a rule group name and a description, and select the rules that you have created and move them to the right side and then click on save. This will associate these rules with the rule group that you have created. So the next step is to associate these rule groups to policies. So here's how you can do it. You can select any number of rule groups and click on the three lines and click on associate to policies. So here you can see the selected, here you can select the rule groups that you want and the available policies in the network configuration manager, and choose the policies to which these rule groups should be associated to, and then you can click on save. So after saving these rules will you created will be associated with the rule group, and those rule group will be associated to the policies. So the next time the NCM runs a policy compliance check, it will check against the rules that you've created or associated with the policy. So now let's look at how you can create a policy from scratch. So just go to the policies tab and click on the plus symbol, and you can provide a policy name and description and select the configuration type, whether it is running or it is startup, and choose the policy violation criteria, whether any rule in the policy is violated, or only if a critical or major rule is violated. You can select the criteria for this compliance policy that you're creating from here, and you can choose the available rule groups needed for this policy, and then click on next. So once you click on next, then you can also select the available device groups, and you can also select the devices that are present if you want to select individual devices, and with this compliance policy, and then choose to choose the required devices and then click on save. So you can check this box if you want to if you want NCM to run a compliance check immediately after creating the policy. So what this will do is run the compliance check for the selected devices and determine whether they are compliant or not compliant. So that's a detailed overview of the of creating custom rules and policies in Network Configuration Manager. So this feature will greatly help network admins automatically detect deviations from desired configurations and take corrective actions, reducing vulnerabilities and maintaining a secure network environment. Now let's talk about the remediation configlets. You can create remediation configlets to resolve any non-compliance issues. These remediation configlets can be assigned while creating a rule itself. If a rule is violated, you can simply choose to remediate the specific rule violation immediately using NCM. So let me show you an example in the UI. So as you can see right here, for the no public community, there is a remediation template tab on the which contains the remediation configlet created for no SNMP public community. And you can see that there are 5 devices that are violation of this particular rule. So what you can do is click on SNMP community template, and the non-compliant devices will be displayed here, and then you can click on execute. So after clicking on execute, the remediation template will run on these 5 devices that are not compliant with these rules, and they will become compliant immediately. So that is why it is always best to create a best practice to create a remediation template while creating a rule. Whenever a rule violation occurs, you can execute it from here anytime you want. So that's a quick overview of the remediation configlet and the network configuration manager. So what does this do? With the help of this remediation configlets, network admins can automatically fix non-compliant configurations on network devices when a compliance check identifies deviations. So now let's move on to the compliance report. So compliance report provides in-depth information about which devices are compliant and not compliant. So along with the date and the time of the last compliance check. So let me show you this in the UI. Let's go to reports and click on compliance report. So here you can see a pie chart represents how many devices are in violation and how many devices are compliant and how many devices data are not available. So it separates the violating devices and the compliant devices into separate tabular columns, and for better understanding. You can see that the violating devices that are listed over here, and along with the number of critical, major, and warning violation, thus means how many are compliant and when they were last checked. So just clicking on the down arrow, you can drill down into the policy, and you can see how many devices are non-compliant for that particular policy. So as you scroll down further, you will see the device policy violation section. If any remediation template has been created, it will be shown over here, and you can click on the specific remediation template to remediate the rule violations immediately. Also, I'd like to mention that we have this report can be exported in various formats like PDF, CSV, or Excel, and it can also be sent to you via email using options in the right hand corner. So this is about it for the remediation configlets. So the next, this is about it for the compliance report. So the next topic is the role-based access control. So what exactly is the role-based access control? So essentially in a network team, you may have different roles such as a senior admin and operators working under them. With role-based access control, you can assign specific roles to each user or restrict them to specific devices. For example, if a user is given an operator role, their access will be limited to the devices assigned to them. They won't have access to any other devices. If an operator makes any changes to the assigned devices, the admin will immediately receive a notification. The admin can choose to accept or reject the changes as needed. So let me show you a simple representation of how the role-based access control works. So here we have an operator who makes the changes to a configuration file. And the configuration files, the configuration changes and all the relevant details are then immediately sent to the admin. And the admin can decide to approve or reject the changes from their end. And once the admin makes the decision, an approval or rejection notification is immediately sent to the operator. So this is the cycle of how role-based access control works in Network Configuration Manager. So let me show you this in the UI. So go to Settings and click on User Management. So as you can see right here, there are users present in the Network Configuration Manager, and their details are shown here. To create a new user, you can just click on Add User, and you can provide the role. For example, you can provide the operator role, and you can enter a username and the email ID for that person and a password, and you can also retype the password. So after creating a user, on the next screen, you can assign specific devices or device groups to them. So let me show you that. So we have created a user named Sam. So if you just click on next, you can assign different uh, device group, or you can also so let's say we have assigned Cisco router group for the device, then only the Cisco router devices will be accessible to this operator, and no other devices will be available for this particular operator. So after you have created, just click on save to confirm. And if the user decides to leave the organization, you can also choose to delete the user from this screen. So now let me show you how an operator makes changes and how the admin receives a notification. So I will be logging out for my administrator account, and I will be logging in as Sam. Just a minute. So as you can see right here, the SAM only has access to Cisco router group in the inventory, and no other devices are visible to him. Suppose Sam wants to make a change to a device. So what he can do is he can go to a particular device and just click on the config changes, and he can choose to edit any lines or delete any lines from here, and click on save and upload. So once he clicks 1 minute, we have to also give the draft name and annotation. So once he clicks on save and upload, here it shows the config upload is not supported, but what it means is that he does not have so we'll also get another error which says this Sam does not have permission for this. So as soon as he clicks on save and upload, the upload request will be sent to the administrator. So let me show you how this looks from the administrator's perspective. So just a second, I'm logging in. So I've logged in back as an admin, and if I go to that bell icon over here where the notifications are received, so here you'll be able to see the request, and it will show you the requests that are available, and it will show you the request that Sham has raised. So after clicking on show, so here you can choose if the change is valid, the admin can choose to even execute it from directly from here, or he can also approve or reject from any changes that are being made from the operator side. So this is how the role-based access control works in Network Configuration Manager. So this feature minimizes the risk of unauthorized changes, access or changes to network configurations, enhances network security, and ensures accountability to controlled access and audit trails. So that's about it for the role-based access control. Now let's talk about tags. So tags in Network Configuration Manager are similar to hashtags. You can create a tag for a specific location and assign devices, schedules, configuration, compliance policies, and user associated with that location. For example, if you have a location in Los Angeles, you can create a tag called Los Angeles by assigning this tag to specific devices, users, and other entities. So only the devices and settings associated with the Los Angeles tags will be accessible to those users. So let me show you how this works in the UI. So let's go to settings and let's go to tags. So here you will see a tag named Los Angeles, which has been created already. So just click on view and you will see the 4 devices present under this tag. Additionally, you can see any configlets, schedules, compliance policies, change notifications, and users associated with this tag. So when a user when a user in network configuration, creating a user in network configuration manager, you can assign a tag to limit their access to only specific devices associated with that tag. So let me demonstrate how this works. So let's go to settings, user management, and let's click on the SAM's profile, which we have already created, and clicking on next. And on the screen, instead of providing access to a specific device or a device group, what you can do is you can select a tag. Let's say we have choose a Los Angeles tag over here. And after that, you can click on save. And after you click on save, only the devices under this tag will be accessible to that user. So this is how the tags work in Network Configuration Manager. So this feature helps network admins organize devices, users, and configurations based on specific criteria like location, department, or device type, which in turn simplifies management tasks by enabling network admins to apply actions, policies, and compliance check efficiently to grouped entities, ensuring consistency and reducing administrative overload. So now let's discuss the custom columns in Network Configuration Manager. You can create up to 3 custom columns to add more specific information to your devices. So let me show you how to do this in the UI. So let's go to settings and under device management, let's go to custom columns. So here you can create a custom column such as location, customer, or any other column you need. And after setting up the columns, you can just click on update. Now, when you check any device in the inventory, you should be able to see the custom columns that has been created by you. And this is how the custom columns are set up and used. So these custom columns in Network Configuration Manager allows admins to add specific and user-defined attributes to devices. So now let's discuss schedules. Network Configuration Manager offers various scheduling options for different task categories such as configuration backups, report generation, compliance checks, configlet execution, device discovery, keeping startup and running configurations in sync, and PCI review. So these scheduling options are particularly useful for tasks that need to be performed on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, since it's impractical for users to remember and manually perform each task regularly. The scheduling feature allows you to set the date and time, and NCM will automatically handle the rest. So let me show you how this works in the UI. So let's go to config automation and click on schedule. And from here, you can click on the plus symbol. and then enter a schedule name and choose the schedule type. So let's select the configuration backup as schedule type, and you can enter the and you can also choose a device group, or you can also choose individual devices based on your preference. So under the report notification, you have two options, which is send email or save the report. If you select send email, you will need to provide the email addresses separated by commas and the email subject. And once the scheduled task is completed, NCM will immediately send the report via email to the specified addresses, allowing you to stay updated on the execution even outside of business hours. So if you prefer not to receive email notifications, uh, you can also enable the save report. And in this case, the NCM will save the report and you can view it next time you log into the network configuration manager. So we also have 5 scheduling frequencies, which is hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, and once. So based on your needs, you can select the appropriate option, and NCM will execute this task at the scheduled time. So this is just an overview of the scheduling option in the network configuration manager. And so this scheduling feature in network configuration manager helps automate routine tasks like configuration backups, compliance checks, and report generation, ensuring they run consistently at predefined intervals without any manual intervention. So next is the topic is the configuration search. So the configuration search is essential for locating a specific string, word, or a pattern with a configuration file. For example, if you have a large configuration file with over 1,000 lines, manually scrolling through it to find a particular keyword would be inefficient. Instead, you can use the configuration search option to find any keyword or pattern instantly. So let me show you how to use this in the UI. So from the inventory, so click on the magnifying glass, and here you can enter your query, or you can also click on advanced and you can set the conditions such as contains or does not contain, or line starts with or line ends with, and enter the specific line or the keyword that you're looking for, and click on search. For example, let's enter enable. Okay. And then click on search. The network configuration manager will search for the specified keyword or pattern across all the network configuration, all the configurations. If it is found, it will be listed over here. So this is how the configuration search works in network configuration manager. So now let's talk about the exclude criteria. So exclude criteria allows you to specify certain elements that NCM should ignore when detecting changes and triggering alarms. For instance, if you don't want the clock time or a specific date to be considered as a change in the configuration file, you can set criteria to exclude these for a particular device. As a result, NCM will not trigger alarms or show these elements as changes, helping reduce redundant notifications for minor or non-essential updates. So let me show you how to set this up in the UI. So let's go to config automation and click on exclude criteria. So in NCM, there are two types of criteria, which is one is line exclude and another one is the block exclude criteria. So for the line exclude criteria, let's take a look at an example where the clock time is being excluded. So as you can see, the criteria for this device type exclude clock time, and just click on, after clicking on save for this device, these lines will not be considered as changes in the configuration versions. So for block exclude criteria, so here you can provide a template and specify the configuration block start and the block end, and NCM will exclude any changes that are within this block. And you can also add additional conditions that should contain or should not contain a particular pattern, and then click on save. So this is how you exclude criteria in NCM. The next topic is alarms. So alarms are used to immediately notify users of important updates or failures. So let me show you how this works in the UI. So we have a separate alarms tab here. Here you can see a list of all the active alarms. And in the all the alarms tab, there are over 2,000 active alarms currently in NCM. So these alarms are triggered for various elements like device configuration changes, backup failures, firmware vulnerabilities, and more. So the alarms will pop up immediately, allowing you to see what alarms are present and the details of the events that you have created. And the details of the events that you've created. So this overview helps you stay informed about critical events in your network. So next is the show commands feature. The show commands feature in Network Configuration Manager allows you to save frequently used commands as templates. So you don't have to type them manually each time in a terminal. You can execute these commands directly from the NCM interface. So let me show you how this works. Just go to settings and under device management, just click on show commands. So here you can see a list of show commands. To create a new command, just click on add, and you can provide a command alias name and enter the command. And after you enter the command, select the vendor and you can click on save. To execute a saved command, just let's go to inventory and just click on a particular device. Under actions, under execute, you can just click on show command and choose the desired command from the drop down, and the results will display directly in the NCM UI without needing a separate telnet session. You can also export the output if needed. So this feature is not only limited to show command options. So other commands like show interfaces, show login, show IP traffic, show system are there. So this is how the show commands works in the NCM. So next we have reports. So NCM provides various types of reports for audit purposes, such as network reports, configuration reports, vulnerability reports, user reports, and more. So let me show you this in the UI. So let's go to reports. So under network reports, there are specific reports available, and in configuration reports, multiple reports are listed. And in vulnerability and user reports include reports related to firmware vulnerabilities like the CVID report and exposed devices report, and other reports. We have end of life, end of sale details report, and compliance report. So let me give you an example of the hardware inventory report. So for the device with an IP address 192.168.49.101, you can view the details like the series module, model, the OS type, the version serial number, etc. You can also filter the report by device group, or you can export it in the formats like PDF, CSV, and Excel, or even email. So now let's look at the CVID report. So another example here is the this provides the details of firmware vulnerabilities, and including the CVIDs, the base core, the number of affected links, and the patch links. So you can click on the links to access the patch details. So this is an overview of the reports in NCM. So these reports feature in Network Configuration Manager provides comprehensive insights into network device configuration, compliance status, and vulnerabilities, enabling administrators to make informed decisions, identify issues proactively, and maintain regulatory compliance. So the next is the UI of the Network Configuration Manager. So the Network Configuration Manager offers an informative, customizable dashboard that provides a bird's eye view of all the current operations in a widget format. So let me show you this in the UI. So let's just click on dashboard, and here you can see the running operations in NCM. You can drag and drop the widgets, and you can click on save to retain the layout. So this dashboard is dynamic and fully customizable. So this is the NCM dashboard. So next we have integrations. NCM supports both in-house and third-party integrations. So first, let's look at the third-party integrations. So NCM supports Password Manager Pro integration, a credential vault software that helps manage credentials for multiple devices, especially useful in large networks. It also integrates well with various ticketing software like the Service Desk Plus, Service Plus, Cloud, ServiceNow, and PagerDuty. For example, when a configuration backup or a configuration approval request is generated, a ticket is created in the Service Desk Plus, and users can manage their requests from here. So these are some of the third-party integrations that are supported by NCM. Now let's look at the authentication supported in NCM. So NCM supports Radius Authentication, a client-server protocol that allows users to log into NCM using the remote authentication. It also allows users to authenticate within the NCM without needing an external identity management tool using the AD authentication. We also have the SAML authentication, an XML-based standard for exchanging authentication credentials between a service provider and an identity provider, supporting a single sign-on. And we also have the two-factor authentication, which adds an extra layer of security by requiring a TOTP from an authenticator app to log in. So let me show you this in the UI. So we can just go to settings and click on authentication. So here you can see options for Radius server authentication, AD authentication, SAML authentication, and two-factor authentication. So to enable the two-factor authentication, you can just click on enable, and you can set the trusted browser for how many days duration, and you can click on save. So if you don't have an authenticator app, you can also opt for the email option to receive a TOTP via email. So this covers the authentication in NCM. Now let's take a look at the Network Configuration Manager. It can also be provided as an add-on to different ME products, which is management products. So it can be an add-on to Op Manager, and Op Manager is a comprehensive network monitoring tool. So if you're already using Op Manager, you can add NCM as an add-on to get the combined benefit of monitoring and monitoring devices and configuration management within the same UI. So we also giving NCM as an add-on to NetFlow Analyzer, a bandwidth and traffic management tool. So you can add NCM to NetFlow Analyzer for combined functionality without changing the UI. And we are also offering a free personalized demo to help you set up and customize NCM for your enterprise. So the panelist will enable the polls for you, and you can choose to select yes to get a free personalized demo and customize Network Configuration Manager according to your wish for your enterprise. And if you're already a Network Configuration Manager customer, you can receive a $25 gift card by leaving a review. And if you're satisfied with the service, please provide your review using the link provided by our panelist. I'm also pleased to announce that NCM is now FIPS compliant. Our panelists will share a link to the page detailing our FIPS compliant, so you can learn more about it. So thank you all for joining this free training session, and I hope to see you all in the next season of Network Configuration Managers free training.